system. Any clue?
Well, first of all, when people die, what's the cost? When 22 people die from listeria infection, and Maple Leaf comes around and says, sorry, it happened, but we can't stop it. It will happen again. We apologize, but we don't guarantee that it won't happen again. So therefore, Health Canada should now set a standard. How many listeria can you swallow without getting sick?
Let me ask you a different question. If I'm at the Chopra family dinner, what are you serving and why?
Well, personally, as much as possible, first of all, I've turned vegetarian.
Vegetarian?
I've turned vegetarian, but it's still not safe enough because I don't know what happens to milk, what happens to yogurt, what happens to my vegetables. Because there are pesticides being used, there are genetically modified organisms. I don't know where the rice is produced, what pesticides are used, how they're used. I have no control over those things. My vegetables are coming from California or Mexico. I have no control.
So you don't buy local organic?
I do better. I try to grow my own as much as I can.
That's what my parents do.
Because then I'm sure.
Yes.
What seeds, what soil, what water I'm putting in there.
Nice.
I'm teaching my grandchildren to do the same.
Nice.
I'm hoping that all schools do the same. So that if we remove, I only talked about acute foodborne infections. Those obviously come from bacteria or viruses, which infect bacteria in big slaughterhouses. Because in big slaughterhouses, when they cut the animal, these are no butchers. These are machines. Mile-long slaughterhouse, they cut them and the bladders and intestines get cut and the bodies get splashed with feces and urine. Then they take out some cuts, they sell those. The rest of the stuff is there, then they grind it up, that becomes hamburger. What more is left, then they turn that into ground meat. And what more is left, they boil that, compress that, that becomes your sandwich meat. None of that is meat.
You know, you're making a heavy guy like me not want to eat again.
Well, no, you can eat again, you should eat, in fact, but I'm just making you aware that your food is not safe. You don't know where it's coming from. Health Canada, CFIA, the Food Inspection Agency keep on saying that, oh, don't worry about it, our food is the safest. Their saying so doesn't make it safe.
This is true.
Because if we're getting people dying from E. coli and listeria, and there's possibility of mad cow disease, and it keeps on occurring, and CFI said, don't worry about it, that was just one cow, 18 cows have occurred, and don't worry about it. And then we don't know what of that meat is ground, or food material is ground up and put into little bottles called baby food.
So Dr. Chopra, on a side note, you just triggered something in my mind. Did you take the antibiotic for the swine flu?
Oh, you mean the vaccine?
The vaccine for the swine flu.
No, I've never taken any flu vaccine ever.
No, I was told my doctor was taking it and I should take it, and I feel like I got sucked into that. What's your opinion on the whole swine flu?
Well, I have a whole DVD on vaccines.
Great. Perfect timing.
Vaccines, is it prevention or a curse?
Right. I know there was mercury in that particular vaccine.
It's mercury. There's mercury. There is aluminum. There are various sera. There is egg protein. There is the virus. There's beef broth. No, in this case, it's made in egg. And there are adjuvants and so forth. There's fish oil in it. There's all kinds of junk in there.
Right.
Right? And flu doesn't kill.
True.
Occasionally, an old person may die, or a person who has underlying heart condition or some other problem.
Right.
But they don't tell you that those are the people. But if you read what Glaxo has produced in this vaccine,
Are they still GlaxoSmithKline or?
GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, They write at the top, we're not responsible if 1 in 10,000 people get paralyzed. This is the special Health Canada ordered vaccine. So Health Canada is responsible, and Health Canada says the World Health Organization said that. They say, President Obama said that. All these politicians are making these statements that there's going to be swine flu. They have no idea. They don't want to know. President Obama made a statement, national emergency. Where did his information come from? There's national emergency, that there's going to be a pandemic.
Now, if you were on his administration at the level that you were at when you were the whistleblower, where would the information be coming from to you that you would then present in the Canadian government at that time, 5 levels up?
It should have come to me from the company. In this case, the company says, we're not going to provide it. Now, you're saying that there's rumor that there's going to be a pandemic. And then they make up a definition of pandemic. If it occurs in 3 countries, contiguous countries, we'll call it a pandemic. And then they get a Chinese woman and they make her Director General of the WHO. So she makes a statement that there's
Who is that woman?
Her name is Dr. Chang or something like that.
Okay.
Margaret Chang. She's the head of the World Health Organization.
Do you believe in her work?
I don't. It's not a question of me believing. She cannot believe in her own work because she hasn't done any work. How does she know?
I know I'm taking on tangents, but I wanted to get to that one. If she hasn't done any work, how does she know? It's a pretty powerful statement.
Because if I am the head of an organization, I have not consulted, and there's just a rumor, and the 3 countries have made up a definition of a pandemic. If 3 contiguous countries get the disease, we'll call it a pandemic, and we'll give it a name. Initially, they said, it occurred in Mexico, the United States, and Canada. They don't say how many cases. Okay? So therefore, we now say it's already a pandemic. So we're now going to order vaccine for everybody. So the companies make, and then they make not just one type of vaccine. Glaxo makes it for Canada. A couple of companies make it for US. The ingredients in one country are different from another country. So in other words, you don't even know what you're injecting. Anything goes. So initially, because Australia and New Zealand are in the south, their climate is the opposite of ours. They said their winter is it'll occur there first. It didn't happen. They said, don't worry about it, but it's going to happen here anyway. And this rumor before the swine flu was bird flu since 1995.
And what's the latest one they're talking about?
Well, right now, they're not talking about, they say, well, it didn't happen, but you take the vaccine anyway.
Oh.
Okay?
That doesn't sound too convincing.
Because they keep talking about the 1918 swine flu. The 1918 swine flu is a myth. It never happened. A lot of people died. But 1918, we didn't know what a virus was. We didn't know how to grow a virus. Number of things happened. The war had just ended. And when some flu occurred, a rumor was spread that a flu is coming, and they called it Spanish flu.
Right.
The Spanish called it French flu.
Okay.
Because they were on the opposite side of the war.
Sure.
They were blaming each other.
Right.
Then they said, okay, we'll call it swine flu.
Okay.
And then as time went on, a lot of people died. We don't know whether those people died from taking some kind of a vaccine. Because now information is coming out that they were making up some kind of vaccines from bacteria, if they were injecting for pneumonia, this and that, so people died from the vaccine.
That's horrific.
And they took too much aspirin, which will make you bleed to death internally. So there's all kinds of things due to which those deaths could have occurred.
Dr. Chopra, we're going to put our audience on edge here because we want to come back in a minute and ask you if you were given the Prime Minister of Canada, President of the United States, the King of the UN, if there was such a thing, and every other country, what would you do Starting with the Prime Minister of Canada, what would you do, the 5 bad things in the food system, which we didn't get into yet on this interview, but we're going to be back in a minute, and would you be willing to explain what you would do to sort things out, starting in Canada, if you had that power, and then eventually around the world?
Well, I wouldn't want that power. The power that I have, the responsibility, the duty I'm given as a scientist, has to be honored by the Prime Minister, by the President.
Honored by the Prime Minister and the President.
Because they have appointed me on behalf of the public. I am a public servant.
Public servant.
I am not a servant of the Prime Minister or the President.
So we're going to leave our audience hanging there. As a public servant, we'll be right back from wellnessheroes.tv. Truth and Wellness. We are very pleasured to have Dr. Shiv Chopra. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're here